Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Jericho. Today I'm super excited to be here with Nabeel. He is an MS1 right now in the College of Medicine, brand new med school, part of the inaugural class. I'm super excited to talk about his experience in med school and his life as a pre-med. But yeah, thanks Nabeel for coming on the show.
For sure. Thank you, Jericho, for the introduction, and hello, everybody.
Of course. So a question I always like to start off with whenever I do these podcasts. What made you want to pursue medicine in the first place?
For sure. The golden question that everybody's going to ask you always throughout their whole life. But I've always been interested in STEM. I didn't know what I wanted to do in STEM, actually. I didn't know if it was medicine or if it was teaching or what it was. I didn't have a strong inclination towards a certain career. I just really enjoyed STEM in high school. And in college, I did biology in undergrad. And I was a TA for anatomy, and I really enjoyed that instruction with the student-teacher relationship. So I actually ended up becoming a teacher here in HISD. And I kind of fell in love with medicine after seeing health inequity within my classroom. So I taught in inner city Houston, and I saw how my students didn't have access to a physician, a primary care. They didn't have the prescription they needed. I had a lot of students who I suspected had a lot of trauma or PTSD with gang violence or gun violence. A lot of students who had asthma, obesity, diabetes, just so many health issues that was untreated, undiagnosed, especially. And so I worked in a community of color. I taught in a community of color. I taught at Sharpstown. And that was just very frustrating to me, where as a teacher, I felt powerless. I couldn't do anything. And so I wanted to be able to prescribe and be able to treat my students' illnesses from a clinical standpoint. And so that is what made me pursue medicine.
All right. So you have had a lot of experience. You were a non-traditional student, came into med school at the age of 27, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of experiences do you think have made the most impact on you, throughout your, pre-med journey before going into med school?
For sure. So I am non-traditional, and I think an experience that I've had that has really crafted my interest in medicine is teaching, which is kind of weird because it's just like I found interest in medicine through a different career that wasn't medicine related. And so teaching itself has taught me just a lot of skills, like people to people interaction, communication. How the biggest thing I learned from teaching, and as I transition into medicine, I've learned is that if you want strong outcomes, you need to have strong relationships. And so if relationships are kind of weak, then don't expect your patients to really follow, your prescription or your guidelines or whatever it is. I think that relationship is key. And I'm glad that in teaching, I was really able to hone in and place a strong value and prioritize relationships.
Okay. Do you think your non-traditional or maybe your teaching experience will ever help you in your journey to become a physician or help you become a better physician in the future? If so, how?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think any experience, any career experience you have before medicine will help you. So I think when you're in undergrad, you're in college, I don't think you're in the real world yet. And then if you go to med school right after undergrad, you're still not in the real world yet because you haven't had a first career. And so I'm glad that right after undergrad, I became a teacher. So I had that career. So I got to live on my own and do everything on my own. But just different skills, like I said earlier, like communication, people to people interaction and relationships, meeting deadlines. This deadlines just works differently in the real life, like in teaching, like lesson plans and having these lesson plans and then having feedback and then having quality improvement. This aspect that I've had skills in, excuse me, that I don't think undergrads would traditionally have, especially when it comes to feedback and quality improvement and how do you work on that and how do you make a lesson plan or just a long-term plan.
Right. Okay. So you were talking about, teaching in communities of, where there's a lot of gang violence and there were a lot of, health disparities and things like that going on. Do you think your experience working in those kind of scenarios have changed maybe how you view medicine, maybe its role in society, or something along those lines.
For sure, for sure. So I think a big thing that teaching has taught me, especially in these communities, is that social determinants of health. And so I saw how, like, upstream, these are factors that are impacting how my students live, access housing, access healthcare, access education, access food, access anything they want. There is obstacles in their path. And so this is inequity. And so um, being in these communities has exposed to me and shown me through my students all these inequities that exist in society. And so as I transition to medicine, I'm more intimately aware of the struggles these communities face. You know, like, even something simple, as someone who's middle class, so I'm middle class, but, like, you know, I have a car, so I can go to a physician office. I don't have to think too much obstacles. But for someone in this community, they may not have access to transportation. They may have 2 or 3 jobs, so they have to call in to take off time from this one job. And now, if they take off time from this one job, they may not get paid. Now, if they don't get paid, now at the end of the month, they're juggling between food and rent. These are, like, thought process going on in their communities and their minds that I don't have to worry about. So it's a blessing for me, but I understand these struggles that other people have. So it just showed me the bigger picture.
Okay. Do you remember any specific stories, maybe in your time teaching in those kind of communities, of people where, you know, things where these kind of health disparities came to light and really barred people from, you know, doing the things that regular people, middle class people would regularly do?
Mm-hmm, for sure. Even something as simple, I remember, is sport physicals. Some of my students identify as undocumented. And so there is fear in the undocumented population of going to a clinic because they are at risk of exposing their status. And so when it comes to sport physicals, it's, what do these students do? And so it's, they don't want to go to a clinic, they don't want to go to a hospital, and they have very valid fears, you know. And so what can we do to close that gap? So it's just providing physicals on campus, if that's a possibility. But I know a lot of my soccer students, they had to grapple that issue. So.
Okay. Are there any specific things that you think should be changed, I guess, in like the social determinants of health? Maybe things that medicine should focus more on, you know, instead of just, like, you know, treating patients like in the hospital. How do you think medicine should have its role in society?
For sure. Great question. So I think medicine is more than just prescription and treating and diagnosing. Because when you discharge a patient and they go home to whatever their home is and whatever their situation, I think another big role, and I think we're seeing that more, I don't know since when, but I've seen that more, and UH is really big on, College of Medicine, is the role that social workers play and community health workers. And so actually one of our courses at UH College of Medicine is HCC, which stands for Household Centered Care, where College of Medicine students work with College of Nursing and works with College of Social Work. And we work as like a triad to address the whole picture of the patient that we're assigned. And so the patient may have asthma, okay, so we can give this prescription, but the social worker would also provide other resources and assistance, because more than just a disease. You know, it's like, how can I uproot this disease? If I want to uproot it, I can't only prescribe, I must address it at its core. I must address it upstream so that it is truly eliminated from this population or this patient. And so I think the role of social workers and community health workers is so, so important.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the biggest problems, I guess, for the traditional healthcare system? Maybe things that we should fix to better help these kinds of patients with these health disparities and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of patients are underinsured or uninsured. And so I don't know the best, I don't want to get political, but I also don't know the best solution, but we are the only developed country in which people, insurance is tied to employment, and not everyone is always employed. And so I think that has caused a lot of issues. And so what can we do to really provide insurance to the about 10% of America that is not insured, because then they won't be accessing care. And so I think that's an obstacle in our society today that needs to be addressed.
Okay, just ensuring more people, making sure that people get the care that they need. Okay.
Yeah, I think everyone should be insured, but I don't think it always has to fall on the person. I think, in my opinion, that has fallen.
Right. When did you first realize you were not going to head into med school straight away? Just going back on your like kind of like pre-med experience, were you even thinking about med school like coming out undergrad, or was it something that wasn't even in the back of your mind?
I did major in biology. That's my major. And my minor was a health policy. And so back in my head, I was like, maybe I'll pursue medicine, maybe not. Like, I didn't have a strong reason to pursue it. I was like, oh, I'm just going to pursue it. You know, I think it's cool. Like, I didn't have a strong reason. So that's why I was always been flaky. And then junior year, I was a TA. And so that's when I really enjoyed teaching. And so actually senior year of college, I was like, let me write up my personal statement. I liked what I wrote, but I just couldn't connect with it 100% because it wasn't genuine. And I wanted a genuine reason to pursue medicine because you are at least committing 7 years of life, 4 years of med school, then at least 3 years of residency. The shortest residency being, I believe, 3 years. So that's 7 years. And so if you're in your 20s, 7 years is gone. And that's like most of your 20s is gone. And so it's just like, it's a commitment, you know, it's a life commitment. It's almost a decade of a commitment. So just be, you know, cognizant of that commitment. And I was not willing to give up that commitment. I wanted to enjoy my 20s. I wanted to do something else instead of medicine. Like I said, I didn't have a strong reason to pursue it. So I didn't want to fake myself, you know, just because. And so it wasn't until my third year in teaching, I decided to pursue medicine just after 3 years of just being so frustrated at the lack of progress on tackling health inequity that I got to see on a daily basis in my classroom. And I thought that this has to change. And so I carry with me, like, you know, the narratives of my former students that influenced me to pursue medicine. And now I have a genuine reason. I'm happy where I'm at. So
That's good. Okay, so now, I guess moving on to med school now. What kinds of things made you pick the UH College of Medicine over other med schools that you may have looked at as well? I guess you talked a little bit about their focus on the social determinants of health and things like that. So what kind of things do you like about the UH College of Medicine?
Yeah, so being part of an Inaugural Class, first, the class size is very small. It's only 30 of us. So we're very, very close-knit. And I function best in environments that aren't cutthroat, but more collaborative. My class is very collaborative, and I wanted to build that culture. And I'm glad that that culture exists. I'm also very close with a lot of my classmates. In addition, I know the UH College of Medicine, they're big on flipped learning. So for those who don't know, flipped learning is essentially the professors provide the PowerPoints or instructional materials where you learn it on your own. And then the next day in lecture, you apply that content you learned on your own in class, like through case studies or discussion or questions. And so as a former teacher, I can tell you, like, this is like a very strong strategy that I would use often. There's research behind it. And so I did look for instruction and what that instruction looked like at different colleges. I actually didn't want the traditional lecture college. I mean, it's okay. It's if you're looking at literature from education, active learning is better than passive learning, just listening. So that is big at UH. So that was another reason. And the other one, I'll be honest, but money is a big deal, you know, and I didn't want to graduate with any debt. And I'm very, very blessed with the opportunity to have, to graduate with no debt. So everything is paid for. So finances are a big thing. And so just be cognizant of finances, you know, that there's not only tuition, but like there's your living expenses and food. It adds up very quickly. And I didn't want to be in more than $200,000 of debt after my 4 years. And so I did want to make sure I'm somewhere in Texas, preferably in my home city, because this is the city that I grew up in and wanted to give back to. So these were just some decision making that I had to make.
Okay. What is it like being the part of the inaugural class of like a brand new school? Do you think it's any different than if you went to another school or something like that, where it's more established? There were other students in like MS2, MS3. I mean, you guys are literally like the only guys there, like MS1. Just that's it right now. So
Yeah. You definitely become very close knit with your classmates. We are very, like I said earlier, we're very collaborative. So for the last block, so our second block, our first semester, it was scientific foundation of medicine. So it was like biochem and immunology and genetics. Um, we can't rely on MS2s or threes or fours to give us practice questions or to tell us how the professor likes to ask a question or whatever. And so we pooled a lot of different resources we found, and some that UH provides. So for instance, we have 2 question banks provided by the school, but we pool a lot of questions together and we create our own tests for our classmates. And then we like give them to the classmates, so they know how they're going to perform on an upcoming exam. And like we do tutor each other a lot. Um, there is so we're still in the preliminary accreditation. We aren't fully accredited, and so with that comes, making sure that we submit all evaluation. Um, that's a big thing. Like just make sure we submit evaluations. That's actually quite big for to receive accreditation. One of the factors is that you have to submit evaluations for professors and courses. And so there is a bigger role on us to provide feedback so that the class of 2025, 26, and 27, et cetera, instruction is improved, or if there's any gap, that gap is filled in before the next class. And so I
right.
guess we're the guinea pigs, but
Yeah.
honestly, it's a very smooth experience. So
That's cool. Um, what are some of the best parts of being at the UH College of Medicine? You talked a little bit about like how your class is very collaborative. Maybe you can talk about that or something else. What are some of the best parts about your
I think
school?
the cool part that I really, really enjoy and look forward to every week is that starting the second week of school, so the first week is orientation. So the first week of classes, you are thrown into a clinic with a preceptor. A preceptor is someone who is a doctor, and you are assigned various tasks. So you go to your clinic once a week, and it's throughout the city of Houston. And so I'm at a pediatric clinic, and so every week when you go to your doctoring class, so like your class on how to be a doctor, you learn like how to take a history, patient history, how to do different tests, like on the body, and then you go to clinic later that week and you do patient history, you do social history, you do all these things. In addition, you do all the tests that you learn. So I really enjoy that. I am interested in peds, and so I was placed at a pediatric clinic, and I really enjoy my preceptor, and it is a unique experience to be going into the clinic your first week of classes right after orientation, and every week you see how much you grow by the end of the semester, and it's pretty cool. Yeah,
Okay. So straight into like clinical, like right from the get go, right? So you don't. It's not
Yep.
even. You don't even wait until third. You just go straight into it. That's
Yep, you
cool.
do not wait. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot of residents at my clinic, and they always ask me if I'm MS3 or 4, and I tell them no, I'm MS1, and they're like, "Whoa, that's cool," and it is different. And I think students will enjoy it if they come to UH College. It is definitely.
Okay, that's cool. Um, what was you complete your first semester? What was the transition like? Maybe during the first few weeks of med school, coming in your case from teaching career and then straight into med school now, doing school, being a student again. What was the transition like? Was it hard? Was it challenging? Or was it kind of smooth? How was it for you?
For sure. So we transitioned during COVID and like the peak of COVID, so we couldn't really do anything in person, which it sucks for everybody across the nation for any school. Like you want to really form stronger relationships with other people and like get to meet your classmates like physically. So we do everything online, which was kind of hard. Like I want to hang out. I want to go out with my friends. I want to eat out. I want to do all these things, but you can't do any of that. You can only like do Zoom. So we do like some Zoom calls, Zoom parties and stuff, which is cool. It's not the same as hanging out and going out physically. That was hard, the social aspect. Like we're still, like I said, we're still close, but you can only do so much in COVID. What everyone's saying. The second thing is the first block is anatomy, and I'm lucky that I used to teach anatomy as a TA in the undergrad, and so that transition academically was smooth.
That's cool.
So,
I guess to end things off a little bit, one final question I have for you. If you could tell your past self a few things about the pre-med journey, or like what life is like in med school, what would you tell yourself?
um, so in high school, middle school, I was in pre-AP, AP classes, but I wasn't a stellar student. I wasn't the top of the class. I was like an average pre-AP, AP student. I was a B student. I didn't get all A's. I would get A's and B's. In undergrad, I got A's and B's again. I did get one C in my transcript, and I still remember, and I cry all the time at that time about it. Even in high school, I'd cry like, why did I not get like an A on this exam? I would tell myself that it will be okay. You will be the doctor that you want to be. You will get in somewhere. You don't have to have 100 on everything. It's like I have a C in my transcript. I hated it at that time, but I got in, and so it's everything will be okay. So if you're listening to this and like you're stressed out because you were in similar shoes, like everything will be okay. Um, yeah, everything will be okay.